Hello, everybody, and welcome to another presentation on the Online Investment Conference. My name is Peter Norman, founder of the Online Investment Conference. Our goal at the OIC is to provide you, the investor, with investment ideas worth watching. And today's investment idea is Cartier Resources, listed on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol ECR. Our presenter today is Philippe Cloutier, President and CEO of Cartier. Philippe, welcome once again.
Hello, Peter. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. Philippe, it's January the 18th, and a new year is already underway. Investors are going over their portfolios and looking for new investment ideas for the coming year. We promised them we'd devote this update to answering all their questions. So why don't you do a quick corporate update, and then we'll get right into the questions. In your update, maybe you can cover off three things that a lot of viewers have been asking about. First, the main highlights of 2022. Secondly, whether you think Cartier is well positioned to create shareholder value in 2023. And three, building on question two, what development scenarios is Cartier contemplating?
Thank you very much, Peter. And I'll just fly through this standard corporate presentation that I updated today on our website. This is a snapshot of our share structure and key financials. We have $6.5 million in the bank, and we're recently trading at a steady yearly low of 10 cents. We have an enviable share structure with ownership by Agnico Eagle, O3 Mining, the Quebec Sovereign Funds, management and board, and some long-term shareholders. Again, I'd like to remind people we have several projects. All of our projects that we have in the pipeline have gold deposits with characteristics that allow us to rapidly grow these things and continue to grow resources on them. However, we are focused on the Chimo Mine project, which is our flagship. And as you'll see, we consolidated with the O3 Mining's East Cadillac project in 2022, provided a resource update and initiated a drill program and redid the PA that we had put on hold in early 2022. Here's a screenshot of the project, the consolidated project, East Cadillac, and our Chimo Mine project. And as you'll see, it covers the equivalent of Val-d'Or to Malartic, where, as you know, there are several dozen mines and several tens of millions of ounces of gold that have been produced. And I've left on the map the local mills, the Beacon, Orbel, Goldex, the Lamaque, the Kena, and the Canadian Malartic. So we're well positioned, proximal to infrastructure and qualified workforce. And obviously with the acquisition, we were able to even continue to grow the resources at the Chimo Mine project. So the next slide, obviously I'll focus closer to home. There's our Chimo Mine project in dark green, and the East Cadillac project that offers up to 15 kilometers of known and delineated additional Chimo type gold mineralization. Once we consolidated the ground, we were able to add the West Dordo deposit ounces to the Chimo Mine project. And so we now have 720,000 ounces of indicated gold and 1.6 million ounces of inferred category gold. Previously, we had done shaft haulage capacity, stope design and sequence. Of note was the ore sorting test that we had done on representative samples at Chimo Mine. And that allows us to pre-concentrate about 50% of the material, thereby increasing the grade by almost 170%. And as you can see, we now cover 40 kilometers of the Larder Lake Cadillac fault. So on the next slide, I'll simply focus on the pay zone here, the closer to home. And just a reminder that the grades that you're seeing here can be doubled by ore sorting. So here's a focus on the Chimo Mine project. I've left the former property boundary. By eliminating those boundaries, we now have access to drilling all of the mineralization that we continue to see here along the Cadillac Break. We could also see along a northern splay. You could see there's quite a bit of drill indicated future targets east of the Chimo Mine system. We tend to focus on what we call the Chimo Mine gold system, which will be the next slide. We'll be looking at a vertical slice through the system looking north-northeast. That's a long section that we tend to present in all our drill program results. And you can see that the system strikes over 3.7 kilometers. We're showing it down to 1.6 kilometers only because that's the ultimate depth that is being drilled to. We have one machine in operation on the West Nordo area here. We have one machine on the East Chimo mine sector. Once that drilling is done, we're going to move over to this part here, try to demonstrate that we have a new lens, and we're going to go immediately west of the shaft and again try to demonstrate that we could grow the ounces there. Our most recent press release that you saw, I think in November, is here and here, and I do believe that you'll have drill results very shortly from the drilling that is indicated in these two areas. We've shown, since we've initiated the program in 2017, that we've continued to grow the gold resources at Chimo, namely because we have the benefit of having all this historic data from this past producing gold mine. There's underground infrastructure. We have very solid controls on structurally what controls the gold mineralization. We're able to focus our drilling on the geometric extension of the gold zones that do very little, if none, prospecting with the drill. And so our target this year is going to try to get this over 3 million ounce mark. I think we're on track to doing that. Catalysts, obviously, we'll continue drilling and produce drill results, continue with the resource estimate upgrades, and obviously deliver the preliminary economic assessment on this play. So that's about it. It covers what we did in 2022, consolidation of the ground, resource estimate, launching a drill program, and continuing the PEA. And we've set the stage for 2023, Peter. You're going to see drill results from the ongoing program. We will deliver the PEA. We're currently also planning an expansion exploration program along these other targets that we can now afford to look at via the consolidation. So I hope I've answered your 3 questions that you put forth to me.
You have indeed. Super presentation as always. Now, let's take a few questions. Our first question for you, Phil, is, with the acquisition of the West Nordo deposit within 450 meters of the resources of the Chimo mine property, what's the status of the recent brownfields drilling work?
We've got one machine drilling, as I've shown on one of the long sections, the West Nordo, deep West Nordo. And that's fun because obviously we have the benefit of having quite a bit of diamond drilling that was done in the past by a number of exploration companies. And via the consolidation, we can now use all the knowledge base that we have acquired on Chimo and apply it to West Nordo. And very shortly, I think we'll be able to provide the market with drill results specifically on that part of the new acquisition. And concurrently or shortly thereafter, we're also going to produce drill results on the East Chimo. Obviously, because the West Nordo mineralization is within accessible distance from the underground infrastructure of the Chimo, the former past producing Chimo mine, we are allowed to consider that in an ultimate mine design and plan. And so it will impact the preliminary economic assessment, and most likely will contribute to yet another resource estimate upgrade in the future.
Do you believe one can put a premium to gold ounces in the Abitibi Gold District of Quebec, and even to projects located in the Val-d'Or area?
Oh, definitely. And I think it also applies to all other companies that are finding resources, be they copper or gold, in established mining districts and camps like, Nevada, Carlin Trend, the Golden Triangle in BC, the Timmins mining camp. Val-d'Or, like these other situations, is steep in mining tradition. It has infrastructure, it has qualified workforce, it has political support. I think when you conduct exploration on advanced exploration plays such as the Chimo Mine project, you do tend to provide a premium type project to the market and the investors.
Okay. Obviously, you've lived in Val-d'Or all your life, have you not?
No, actually, I've lived in quite a few areas around the world due to my father's occupation. And after graduating in geology it was only natural for me to set up shop in mining territory. And I've kind of circumnavigated the Abitibi Greenstone Belt, worked in the Rouen area, the Matagami area, the Chibougamau area, and finally in Val-d'Or. And through my stint at Ore Resources, I was very privileged to work the Southwest U.S. and some of the South American countries. So I've been around, and I still think the Abitibi in Quebec is the best place to explore.
Well, your background's in exploration. Cartier has a huge property now because of the East Cadillac acquisition. How will you take advantage of such an enormous land position? And have you already defined some new targets?
Yes, and well, we're refining the targets because a lot of these targets are drill indicated historic discoveries that were shelved by previous workers, simply because they always felt that for those discoveries to shine, they would have to end up in whoever owned the Chimo mine. We took away those constraints by consolidating the Chimo mine and the East Cadillac project. Now, obviously, our focus, and you could understand why, is the Chimo mine gold system in and around the infrastructure. But obviously, we know there's gold along strike up to 15 kilometers to the east of Chimo and a few kilometers to the west. We're going to have to pace ourselves through that. But in the coming year, we will establish, various stages of exploration programs. And if for some reason we're flooded with money or a partner, then we will develop these things.
How do you think Cartier stacks up against those other juniors that have been flattened over the past year and a half?
I think we stack up quite favorably because, and again, it's largely due to the luck we built into our system by nabbing onto the Chimo Mine Gold Project. I think all the juniors that have strived to keep being relevant in advancing their projects, advanced project type situation, steadily increasing the resource base. Well, those juniors, and Cartier is one of them, will shine in a good market. And I'm hoping 2023 will be much better than 2021 and 2022.
How do you think traditional gold company juniors compare with the recent vogue in critical elements and lithium companies?
Well, I think you're probably going to get the same treatment, at least in the short term, that we had during the crypto and the cannabis craze, right? As one famous CEO said, they're eating our lunch. So the new fad, the new thing is critical metals. How that will play out, lithium, rare earths, and all that, how that will play out, because it's a totally different economic landscape, if I may say so. I mean, gold and copper, they have spot prices, versus these critical elements, well, they're more akin to offtake agreement type things. It's a different dynamic. So I'll wait and see. I don't judge. I believe that all exploration process and dynamic can bring tremendous wealth to the various jurisdictions that they're found in. And so I'm going to wish everybody luck. But I do believe that gold, as we've seen gold price appreciate, it will first benefit the gold producers, and then ultimately it has to trickle down to the juniors that have resources, and then trickle down even further to the gold juniors that are exploring grassroots stuff. So I think we're next in line to profit from the strong gold prices. But I think investors that are looking at critical metals, it's a different mindset from gold. Gold is long-term value investing, and critical metals we'll see.
Cartier has multiple projects and prospects, but all the attention seems to be focused on Chimo. Why?
Well, because it's a very advanced exploration play on the verge of providing the market with a preliminary economic assessment. To show that this thing is going to go back into production, hopefully. And so it makes a lot of sense to maximize or optimize your investments on something that can reward the investors in the shortest term possible. That it doesn't discount the exploration or the prospective targets that we have along strike of the Chimo mine, but obviously, if in these choppy waters, you always want to put your money where you're going to be able to take the ball across the touchdown line.
Do you think Cartier is still an attractive takeover target?
Absolutely. Keep in mind, though, that again, the corporate and economic landscape of 2016 and 17, when we started focusing on Chimo, has dramatically changed. Like, just take Kirkland Lake merging with Agnico, and then now the new Agnico taking over Yamana. So that those larger company or corporate structures obviously have different filters and thresholds, but at the same time, that wakes up the aggressiveness or the dynamics of smaller producers. So as long as you're working on a project that makes sense and will eventually produce considerable cash flow, you're in play for a takeover. So I still think that can be the case where there's going to be a clear-cut acquisition or a development partnership or some sort of you have to go with the times, and I think the clear answer is yes, we are still a takeover target.
Up until now, we've had a pretty warm winter in comparison to past years. Has this impacted Cartier in any way?
Not us, but I can tell you that other companies that had planned on a very cold winter that would freeze up their swampy areas and lakes, that they're saying goodbye to their winter drilling season. Fortunately for us, the Chimo Mine project can be drilled 12 months out of the year. There are some areas that are more tricky because the ground is a bit more swampy. But for now, that's not affecting us.
When do you expect the next drill results? And while we're at it, what about the PEA?
Two answers, shortly and soon. So shortly, I think the drill results are imminent. The labs are freeing up. We've had a extended vacation period over December. So the next drill results for Chimo are imminent. I think it's safe to say that shortly thereafter, the PEA will surface and we'll deliver that.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our live Q&A today. If you haven't submitted a question yet or want to submit one later, you can always do so by emailing Phil at philippe.cloutier@resourcescartier.com. You can give him a call at 819-874-1331. I can assure you that he loves talking to investors. And now, before we close out the presentation, I'm going to turn things over one more time to Philippe for final remarks. And Philippe, as we always do, maybe you can build your final remarks about the three things investors should remember about Cartier.
Well, we've got an advanced exploration asset in the Chimo Mine Gold Project. We've delivered 4 resource estimates. We're drilling right now, and we're set to deliver our first PEA on the project. We're well funded with $6.5 million in the bank, and we have 2 machines out there drilling. I think we could produce some very good news flow, solid and exciting news flow for investors in the next 2 quarters or 3 quarters ahead.
Thank you, Philippe. And before we go, a reminder that today's presentation was from Cartier Resources, trading on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the ticker symbol ECR. Our presenter was Philippe Cloutier, President and CEO of Cartier Resources. The drilling program on the Chimo Mine project is well underway. There's money in the bank and a well-thought-out plan for putting it to work. There's lots more news in the hopper, and we'll be back in a month or so with another update. You can learn about upcoming presentations at onlineinvestmentconference.com or by following us on Twitter or LinkedIn. I'm Peter Norman, founder of the Online Investment Conference. Stay safe, be well, and until we meet again, bye-bye and au revoir.